he almost walked out. A black single father, sitting alone in a quiet cafe, checking his phone for the third time, no messages, no apology, no explanation. Just silence. He had already accepted it. Another moment where he wasn't chosen. Another reminder that some people decide your worth before they even meet you. The waiter was watching. The other tables were full. And still, no one came for him. Until the door opened. And a woman stepped inside who would change everything he thought he knew about judgment, race, and himself. But what happened next wasn't just uncomfortable. It exposed the truth most people prefer to ignore. He hadn't always been this cautious with hope, but life had trained him to be. Being a black single father meant learning how to carry responsibility quietly. Every morning began the same way, packing lunches, tying small shoes, reminding himself to smile even when exhaustion sat heavy on his shoulders. His world revolved around his child, leaving little room for himself. Dating wasn't a priority anymore, it was something he approached carefully, almost reluctantly. That evening, though, felt different. The cafe had been chosen because it was neutral, public, safe, unassuming. He arrived early, not out of eagerness, but habit. He preferred to be prepared, to avoid giving anyone a reason to misjudge him. He straightened his jacket, noticed the way a few eyes lingered on him longer than necessary, then looked away. He was used to that too. The date had been set through messages that felt polite but distant. Nothing flirtatious. Nothing warm. When the time passed and his phone stayed silent, he told himself not to read too much into it. Still, a familiar thought crept in. Had she seen his picture and changed her mind? Had assumptions already been made before a single word could be spoken? Around him, conversations flowed easily. Laughter bounced off the walls. He sat still, blending into the background, wondering if leaving quietly would be easier than waiting any longer. What he didn't know was that this night wasn't leading toward rejection. It was leading toward a moment that would challenge every assumption in that room, and force him to confront a reality far bigger than one missed date. Time stretched in a way that made the cafe feel smaller than it really was. Every glance at the door tightened something in his chest. He told himself he wasn't embarrassed, but the weight of being visibly alone in a room built for pairs was impossible to ignore. A server passed by twice, each time offering a polite smile that carried quiet curiosity. He nodded back, calm on the surface, unsettled underneath. When the door finally opened, the shift in the room was subtle but unmistakable. A few heads turned. A woman stepped inside, scanning the cafe as if searching for something specific. Her confidence stood out, not loud, not forced, but steady. When her eyes landed on him, they didn't slide away. They held. That alone felt unfamiliar. As she walked toward his table, the air around him seemed to thicken. He noticed the pause in nearby conversations, the way attention gathered without anyone admitting it. Two people sitting down shouldn't have mattered. But in that space, at that moment, it did. He caught fragments of reactions without looking directly. A raised eyebrow. A tightened jaw. A phone lifted slightly, then lowered again. He'd felt this before, the silent scrutiny that followed him into certain rooms. Only now, it wasn't just about him. It was about who chose to sit across from him. The woman smiled as she settled into the chair, and the tension didn't disappear. It shifted. He became acutely aware of his posture, his hands, the way his presence was being measured. Years of experience had taught him how quickly moments like this could turn. How easily curiosity could become judgment. How fast judgment could become something sharper. A staff member hesitated nearby, checking the table number twice before approaching. The pause was brief, but it landed heavily. He wondered if anyone else noticed, or if it was one of those moments only he could feel, because he had lived it so many times before. As minutes passed, the unease grew. Whispers traveled in short bursts. A couple at the next table glanced over more often than necessary. It wasn't hostile, not openly. It was something quieter. Something harder to call out. The kind of discomfort that pretended to be concern. He thought about leaving again, not because of her, but because of the pressure settling into the space around them. He had learned that sometimes survival meant choosing the exit before someone else forced it on you. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of shrinking under the attention, the woman leaned in, unbothered by the stares. Her calm presence disrupted the unspoken narrative forming around them. And for the first time that night, he felt the balance shift, just slightly. Still, the room wasn't done watching. And the real test, the moment that would expose what this situation truly meant, was yet to come. The tension in the cafe became almost tangible, pressing down on him with every heartbeat. Every eye in the room seemed to weigh him before he even spoke, as if silently measuring whether he belonged. He had faced assumptions before, casual dismissals and sideways glances, but tonight felt different. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was a spotlight, unyielding, scrutinizing him in ways he had spent years learning to navigate. She reached across the table, calm and deliberate, her presence cutting through the unspoken judgments like a knife through fog. For a brief moment, he felt an unfamiliar surge of hope. This was a person who refused to follow the script everyone else had written. And yet, the murmurs around them didn't stop. Some stares were open, some concealed, but all carried the weight of preconceptions that had nothing to do with him as a man, as a father, as a person. Then it happened. A comment, lightly muttered but loud enough for him to catch. I didn't expect him to actually show up. The words were casual to the speaker, but to him, they carried every ounce of the prejudice he had been bracing for his entire life. His pulse spiked, chest tight. He looked at her, searching for an ally, for a single face that could anchor him amid the storm. Her smile didn't falter. She leaned closer, as if shielding him from the invisible judgments, her presence a quiet rebellion against the assumptions that had followed him for years. In that moment, he realized the fight wasn't just about one date. It was about being seen, not as a stereotype, not as a statistic, but as a human being. The room seemed to hold its breath. Phones paused mid-scroll. Conversations dropped into silence. Every second stretched painfully, yet carried an undeniable weight. This was the moment that exposed both the cruelty and the courage lurking in ordinary spaces. And as the first hesitant smiles returned to nearby faces, he understood, the night wasn't just about acceptance. It was about truth. The truth that many avoided, but which he had been living every single day. The night ended quietly, yet its impact would linger far longer than the cafe lights. He walked out with her, but it wasn't the walk itself that mattered, it was the feeling of finally being seen, acknowledged, and respected. For once, he wasn't being judged for the color of his skin, his status as a single father, or the assumptions others had already made. He was simply recognized as a man, with his own story, his own worth. Back home, the familiar walls no longer felt confining. The fear, the anxiety, and the constant awareness of judgment still existed, but they had been pierced by a moment of human connection that refused to be dictated by prejudice. He realized how rare such moments were, how precious they could be, and how necessary it was to carry them forward, not just for himself, but for others who faced the same silent scrutiny daily. The encounter wasn't a fairy tale. The world outside still harbored the same biases, the same assumptions, the same invisible barriers. But tonight had shown that those walls could be challenged, if only one person refused to play by them. One act of recognition, one choice to see a person fully, had ripples that extended far beyond the immediate room. He thought of his child, and the lessons this night carried. The world could be harsh and unforgiving, but it could also be human. It could surprise, protect, and uplift. And that duality, pain and hope, injustice and recognition, was the reality they would navigate together. Sometimes, the bravest act isn't confrontation. Sometimes, it's persistence. Sometimes, it's showing up and refusing to let assumptions define your life. And in that persistence, change begins, slowly, quietly, undeniably. The question lingered as he finally exhaled, how many more people would go unseen before someone decided to truly look? And somewhere deep inside, he knew the answer didn't matter yet. What mattered was the courage to keep showing up, to keep believing that recognition, understanding, and humanity could still break through, even in a world that often tried to look away.